Death was never the end. For thousands of years, people believed that the body had to stay whole. They believed that without the body, the soul could not live on. And so they found a way. They learned how to stop time. They learned how to hold a human body in place, frozen between life and what comes after. This is the story of the mummy. This is the story of people who refused to let go. The land was dry. The air was hot. The sun burned down on the earth like a fire that never went out. Along the banks of the Great Nile River, a civilization was growing. It was growing into something the world had never seen before. Egypt was not just a place. It was an idea. It was a belief. And at the center of that belief was one simple but powerful thought. Life did not stop at death. Life continued. It moved from one world to the next. But to make that journey, the body had to survive. This idea changed everything. More than 5,000 years ago, the people of ancient Egypt began to prepare their dead in ways that no other people had tried before. At first, it happened by accident. Bodies buried in the hot desert sand dried out naturally. The sand pulled the water from the skin. It pulled the moisture from the muscle. What was left behind was something that shocked even the people who found it. The body was still there. The face was still there. The person was still recognizable. This discovery did not frighten them. It gave them hope. If the earth could preserve the body on its own, they thought, imagine what human hands could do. And so the work began. Slowly, over hundreds of years, the people of ancient Egypt developed a process. They studied the body. They tested different materials. They made mistakes. They tried again. By the time of the great pharaohs, the process had become a precise and careful art. It was an art that took 70 days to complete. 70 days. During that time, the body passed through many hands. It was washed with clean water mixed with a salt found in the desert. This salt, called natron, was one of the most important materials in the entire process. It drew moisture out of the body the same way the desert sand had done before. But now it was controlled. Now it was deliberate. The internal organs were removed carefully. The stomach, the lungs, the intestines, the liver. Each organ was cleaned and dried and placed inside its own special container. These containers, called canopic jars, were sealed and stored near the body. Each jar had a different lid. Each lid was shaped like the head of a god. Each god had a job. Each god protected a different organ on its journey into the next world. Only one organ was left inside the body. The heart. The heart was everything. The heart was the seat of the mind. The heart was the place where memory lived. The heart was the part of you that made you who you were. Without the heart, the soul had no home. Without the heart, the gods could not judge you. And in the world that waited after death, judgment was everything. The brain was a different matter. To the ancient Egyptians, the brain had no special meaning. It was removed through the nose using long, thin tools. It was discarded. This is one of the most surprising things we know about this ancient world. The organ we now consider the most important part of the human body was, to them, simply something that needed to be taken away. After the organs were removed, the body was packed with natron salt and left to dry. It was left for 40 days. 40 days in the dry, still heat. 40 days for the moisture to leave. 40 days for the shape of the person to settle into something that would last. Then the work continued. The body was washed again. It was rubbed with oils and resins. These were not just practical materials. They were sacred. Some came from trees that grew far away. Some were traded across great distances. To use them on a body was an act of respect. It was a gift to the dead. It was a way of saying that this person mattered. Then came the wrapping. Hundreds of meters of linen were used to wrap a single body. The wrapping was not quick. It was careful. Each finger was wrapped separately. Each toe. The arms were wrapped. The legs were wrapped. Small objects were placed between the layers of linen. Amulets. Charms. Tiny figures of gods. Each one was there for a reason. Each one was meant to protect the person on the journey ahead. As the linen was wrapped around the face, the person began to disappear. Layer by layer, the living image was replaced by something else. Something still. Something preserved. something that would last for thousands of years in the dry dark of a sealed tomb. The mummy was complete. But the story does not end there. Across the ancient world, mummification was not only an Egyptian practice. In South America, the Inca civilization preserved their dead in the cold, dry air of the mountains. These mummies were not hidden away. They were kept close. They were brought out during ceremonies. They were treated as if they were still part of the family. They were offered food. They were spoken to. They sat among the living as honored members of the community. In the bogs of northern Europe, bodies sank into the dark, wet earth and were preserved in ways no one planned. The cold water and the chemistry of the bog did what the desert sand did in Egypt. It stopped time. It held the body in place. Some of these bog mummies still have their skin. Some still have their hair. Some still have the expressions on their faces. The look on those faces is hard to forget. They look like they are simply sleeping. They look like they could wake up. Some of them show signs of a violent death. A cut on the throat. A rope around the neck. The reason for their deaths remains unknown. Were they criminals? Were they chosen? Were they willing? The bog does not answer questions. The bog only keeps. In the mountains of Asia, in the frozen ground, more mummies have been found. These are people who lived thousands of years ago on the cold, high plains. Their bodies were preserved by the frost. Their clothes survived. Their tattoos survived. The marks on their skin tell stories that no one has fully understood. The symbols are complex. The meaning is lost. But the fact that they are there at all is astonishing. Mummies have been found on almost every continent. In every culture that ever tried to preserve the dead, there was the same wish underneath it all. The wish to hold on. The wish to keep the people they loved from disappearing completely. And then there is the mystery. For centuries, the tombs of Egypt were sealed. No one went in. No one came out. The dark inside those tombs held more than bodies. It held objects. It held food and clothing and tools and games. It held everything a person might need in the next life. The ancient Egyptians believed that the next world looked very much like this one. They believed that a person would need to eat, to work, to walk, to breathe. And so they made sure the dead had everything. When those tombs were finally opened, when the sealed doors were broken and the air inside met the air outside for the first time in thousands of years, the people who entered felt something strange. They stood in rooms that no living person had seen for millennia. The dust had not moved. The offerings were still in place. The colors on the walls were still bright. Time had stopped inside those rooms the same way it had stopped inside the wrapped and preserved bodies at the center of them. There were stories of curses. There were rumors of strange illness falling on those who entered. Most of these stories have simple explanations. But the feeling they came from was real. The feeling of entering a space that was not meant to be disturbed. The feeling of crossing a line between the world of the living and the world of the dead. That feeling has never fully gone away. Today, scientists study mummies with tools that the ancient Egyptians could never have imagined. They scan bodies without unwrapping them. They look inside the layers of linen without touching a single thread. They find disease and injury and evidence of lives lived long ago. They find what people ate and where they traveled and how old they were when they died. The mummy that was once a body, then a wrapped and sacred form, then a mystery, has now become a source of knowledge. But knowledge does not erase wonder. Every mummy is a person. Every wrapped and preserved form was once someone who laughed and worked and loved and feared and hoped. Every one of them was placed in the ground by people who missed them. Every one of them was prepared with hands that cared. Every one of them was surrounded by objects chosen with love and with grief. They were not trying to cheat death. They were trying to stay connected. They were trying to say that the people they had lost were not truly gone. They were trying to hold a hand across the longest distance any of us will ever face. Thousands of years have passed. The tombs are open. The mummies are studied. The world they came from is gone. But they are still here. And that, more than anything, is what they were always meant to be.